you kind of brought that up too. You're going to be an example if you really go for something and you think about yourself and you achieve a goal. I also think it's important that we open up the conversation, with males and get them part of the conversation. And part of the same study that we've been talking about, Stubbings points out that male decision makers must be part of an open conversation about closing the gender gap in the workplace. What do you think are some effective ways to speak with men about gender equality in the workplace?
That was such a tough one. I was just like, I have no idea. No.
I think again, just by starting those, having those conversations and bringing awareness on the issue. It's not everybody aware of the topic, and just starting talking about it and in the workspace, and maybe even making initiatives on making changes in the hiring process, in trying to bring more diversity in the field, trying to make adjust the workspace to fit moms and future moms, or just trying to think of the ways how we can improve the workspace together. And it's I think it's a great start.
I would say maybe, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, trying like a super general approach, especially like if we're going to think of a specific scenario and we're in work, or we're like kind of in like the cafe area of a job, and it's pondering in your mind, and you're like, okay, you know what, I really want to see some changes, or I'm trying to think of advancement for myself and just for the other women of my company. Generally just asking the guys like a general question, and just to see like where their vibe is, I think would be a good start, because we get to see like what we're working with, and then we'll know as women to like, okay, now we got to come up with our game plan, and then like asking the general question, and then finding other women within our own companies to strategize with, to say like, you know what, we want to start seeing a change. We want to really work together to start decreasing the gap within our own company. So we kind of got an idea of what they even think about it on a general platform, and then let's try to like work from that. So maybe just asking like just general topics, just talking about it. Conversation is everything, I personally feel.
And you can figure out who the champions might be, right? Who's on your side, and because there has to be someone who I think starts with the understanding and can then communicate and really start to close that gap with communication, as you pointed out.
And who can also persuade, because there's some guys that they have to persuade the other guys who maybe don't feel the same way. So, but there's one guy who's on both sides. So,
maybe I could answer it based on the transparency question. Actually, it's like, as a nonprofit, our mission is to make social change for whatever program we're doing, and so if that's not reflected in the internal part of it, then what are we doing? And so, I think I've been trying to start with staff meetings to sort of talk about what we're trying to build racial equity, gender expression, in terms of diversity, intersectional approaches, and then how to have that conversation, and it's an ongoing process, but if it's there as a transparent discussion to meet our mission, we need to look inside ourselves. Then people might not feel like, because there's a vision in mind, rather than, oh, what do I have to lose, or what do I, feel maybe defensive or worried, because everyone wants to keep their jobs, and everyone, change is scary sometimes, but maybe if that kind of vision and mission-oriented stuff is reflected, there's an openness to how we can go about talking about that. So,
and conversations on how the change in the vision, like you were speaking of, will directly affect everyone within the company, male, female alike, and how it will affect their family members, or just speaking on that platform and that level will maybe open up the eyes to people's minds changing and stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you hope to open people's minds, you have to start with something they can relate to, something that makes sense, and saying something like, oh, well, this is actually in alignment with our mission statement. You can start there. Sometimes it's empathy. Like you have a sister, you have a mother, you have other people in your life, and so there are different avenues, I think, to open that conversation.
And I guess also in Buffalo, there's so many social challenges, like, and in terms of it still being, isn't it still like the third poorest city in the country? And it's like, or I forget the number, what it is.
Fact check that
It's
later.
in the top 5 or 10.
Yeah, and so also, and women and youth in Buffalo also tend to be part of that demographic of.
Absolutely.
So it's just, there's so many, that's why the intersectional is so important. So maybe you don't pick up just on the gender part, but you realize that it's connected to so many other things. And also not to stigmatize people also in those ways, because it happens in multiple dimensions, I think, for different communities. So I think thinking locally is important.
Unintentionally, right? Sometimes people have some biases or things that they might not even realize. I have conversations with my own family members, my own friends who are males, and sometimes they don't even realize the ways, and sometimes that they may be, I don't want to say hurting us, but holding us back a little bit, you know, by their way of thinking. And sometimes it just takes someone saying, hey, you're wrong and here's why. It takes someone standing up and just educating, because it's hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and it's hard to think outside of your own bubble. We're all busy people. We all have our own lives, and that tends to be our priority. So it's hard to kind of sit back and think about the larger context of things sometimes. And I don't think, you know, the men don't do it on purpose sometimes. Maybe some do. But by and large, you know, I think we are approaching more of a generation where people are more open and accepting, and want to see women succeed. I know plenty of men that want to see us succeed. Even my own supervisor, the vice president of marketing, Jason Juniak, shout out to him. Maybe I'll, you know, get some brownie points. But you know, very supportive, you know, and it takes having those conversations with people sometimes to kind of point out those biases. We all have them, you know? And so sometimes it's just educating them about what the issue is, and putting it into a real life context of how this affects me, someone you know. This isn't something other people are talking about. This is something I'm experiencing too.
Do we think as a group that women are, it's more and more accepted for women to sort of speak up and talk about issues, or do we feel like it's staying relatively the same?
I feel like it's getting there.
Okay.
Like, I feel like we're at the tip and we're about to like go over the peak, because it's a great time to be like a woman with a voice, you know, nowadays. So I feel like we're there.
Yeah, women are more empowered than we have been definitely
In
ever
a
before.
very long time.
I think there is still a long way to go for a lot of things, but I think starting here today with where we are and what we have is the best first step that we can take to making those changes, and having conversations like this one with women like you, and you know, educating our colleagues like Jim over here, you know, about some of these issues. Like, you know, that's the first step that we can take, and it's the best step.
Yeah, and having, you know, platforms like social media channels, you know, anyone can have that platform to speak to, you know, to the world, and it's definitely technology helps to spread the message much faster, and you know, bring the change closer.
Absolutely. I think so. Being the vice president of people here at Bak USA, just empowering all the employees to feel like they have a voice is so important to us. And it gets more interesting the more diverse your workforce is. More difficult and more interesting and more beautiful. So one of the things that we do see in our applicant pool here at Bak USA is that we have fewer women who are applying for careers in technology and engineering. So while we certainly support women in STEAM, we're just not getting as many applicants. So in order to welcome more women in careers in STEAM, we need to encourage women to apply for STEAM careers. But as we know, talent, skill, and experience are the most important qualities in a job candidate, regardless of sex and gender. So how can we close the gender gap without being biased? What is the most ethical way you think we can promote jobs for women?
I think one of the reasons, you know, we're getting such a difference in the ratio of men and women applying is that, you know, it's hard to reach out to, you know, to everyone out there who can be a potential candidate, and you know, a lot of times women might not be looking in the same, you know, same places as guys looking for opportunities. A lot of that is networking, word of mouth, right, referrals, and I think one of the steps that organizations like Bak can do is reach out to the organizations that work closely with women and already have that talent pool, and just reach out to them and say, hey, we have all these great opportunities, because sometimes women might not be looking to switch careers, or they don't know about these opportunities, or million reasons, right? And just reaching out to more diverse talent pool, I think that would help to see the difference in the number of women applying.
I would have to piggyback on that and say Bak can be the change. It's just like, okay, you're so used to getting applicants, but like she was saying, Lena was saying, go out there and get them and let them know, hey, we want women like you. We want, when you can apply for this position, you are welcome here. So maybe kind of like changing it up a little bit, switching it up on Buffalo real quick.
I totally agree with the outreach part.
Yeah.
And that there are organizations that are, I'm just repeating, that developing the talent pool. So, and then we can spread that as well. So it's exciting.
It would be so cool.
Yeah, and with Girl Develop It, we have a lot of great success stories where we helped our members to connect with great local companies, and it's just win-win for everybody. So, and especially the companies that looking to nurture the talent, we get a lot of entry-level developers, for example, right? So connecting them with the great companies that are focused on the growth and developing the talent and giving people opportunity, I think that's that's why we're here, and we want to see more of the companies like that popping up in Buffalo.
And also if in the long run, with our students, it's like if we had you or someone from your company come do a talk about working in tech, in local it's like that, again, representation. So you can also come to us too.
And then having that dialogue about how one skill set can apply to a larger skill set, and opening their eyes to know, like, hey, maybe I don't know about this yet, but I have this one skill set that gives me the prerequisite to be able to grow into what I can possibly achieve in the future.
It's also important to start stimulating that interest at a young age, right? And it's something you do with Tech Art for Girls, and Girl Develop It is for all ages, but it's a similar, when you came here to Buffalo, you said, I didn't even know anyone, so just stimulating that interest from a young age, and Ciara, your daughter, now you're seeing her interest, and your own family kind of catching on, so kind of stimulating that interest, and exposing children to programs like the ones you've created, or to different people who represent something that's so much greater than what they see in their everyday life. I think is really important too, is getting that interest early, because and it kind of goes back to society. If I'm a mom, I've got, my sister has 4 girls and 1 boy, and the girls all get pink and purple, and they get the Barbies and the dolls, and my nephew gets the Nerf guns and the all of the boy stuff. And so it's almost a question of, are we hurting them by doing that? But my daughter looks cute in pink, and she should be able to wear, And so is there something else that we should be doing as parents, as family members, or as teachers, as educators, to start to hone that interest at a young age?
I think so. I think more open minds all across the board would just be beneficial, especially for the younger children. I can speak for my daughter. She's the only child, but I have caught myself doing this sometimes too. She's rough, but she's still like super prissy too. So the times that she's rough, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're acting like a boy. And I had to catch myself and say, you know what? You got to stop saying things like that, because then I don't want her to stop doing those things that she really likes, which is going to limit her from, engaging in other things. So we're all guilty of it, but I feel like having more of an open mind and learning and training ourselves to stop just thinking that way, and just being open to, you like what you like, you do what you want, type of thing, and going from there.
I think it's just like not trying to pigeonhole our kids into the certain mold, and let them girls play with boy toys and boys playing with Barbies. I mean, it's really helps to develop more well-rounded kids, and I mean, today want to play with Barbie, it's more like, I want to play with a Nerf gun. I want it as a gift.
My daughter has a Nerf gun. Like 5 of them.
Like my dream, like since the childhood, I was dreaming about that like RC cars. So like my dream when I have kids, I'm gonna buy all the coolest toys and just play with them myself. So that's my goal in life.
I like that plan.
I think also maybe because there's society is changing too to be more accepting of like non-gender binaries between like what's purely a man or purely a woman, and there's so much in between. And so I think maybe thinking less polarizing, I guess, about and thinking, because we don't know how your child will grow up and what gender they might choose also and how they express it. So I think that feels like just changing, at least in certain circles, you know, on at least on Twitter and like social media. It feels like there's a lot more like support for gender non-conforming youth, you know, who are really finding a voice, or like fashion that's like gender neutral, or so it feels like it's hip now or something. I'm not really sure, but I think that's a good direction. And maybe as parents or family members or employees and bosses, whatever, we can take out unlearn our binaries in our heads, and that might help with the color, because it might be not about just 2 colors. Then it will be, so.
I think that also goes the binary part of, are you in tech or are you not in tech? I think that's a really big question there. I know lots of people who work here at Bak USA, including women, didn't come from the world of tech at all. I mean, I know I didn't. And, every day is sort of a learning curve in terms of understanding the technology of what we're actually doing, but doesn't mean you can't be a valuable asset. It doesn't mean you can't be part of a technology team.
Right.
But there is this almost vision of a technology company when I'm sure if we did some psychological tests and we just said, like, think of a tech company and we analyzed your brains, like you would think of a mostly male company, because this is sort of just how we think about it. And it can seem intimidating, right? And I think that intimidation is probably what holds some women back from applying to tech companies, even if they're in tech, right? Because the idea is just, I'm not going to, maybe I can't bring my whole self to work, as you mentioned earlier.
I can even speak on when I first began the app, we have to be in heavy communication with Apple Incorporated and Google Inc. and with their developers and speaking with and when they start saying the word developer, I was like, I don't know I can't, like, and they were just like, yes you can, and just general emails where they're just speaking regular language, and if they have a word that I wasn't too familiar with, I'll just go ahead and research it or look it up, and then I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure, I can totally do that. So I am also guilty of automatically assuming that I can't do something based off of what I've only seen, or what has only been done, or what has only been shown to me based off a certain type of category or job. So
absolutely,
just go for it.
I mean, it kind of all starts with ourselves, right? Like, no one can really limit you if you are not limiting yourself, and that's a really hard, I think, truth because in some ways we would like to blame our surroundings, but we have to start with believing in ourselves.
Sometimes it's not always that. So even if you have the confidence or the skills, or sometimes you're in cultural situations where you're bullied, or actually, people are trying to take you out of that.
Yeah, so then they
cyberbullying by males to women game developers. You know, like there's so much that happens. So it's like I guess it has to happen on so many levels. Like making maybe those issues come to the fore a bit more, publicly talking. I mean, it is public, people are talking about, but I guess maybe what can we do about it?
That actually reminds me of an article that I read, I think it's a year ago, that it's not necessarily that a limited amount of women enter tech, it's just that a lot leave. Because of this exact issue. It's the sort of quiet bullying, the obvious bullying, or just making you generally uncomfortable. Right? And then we leave. So don't quit.
I'm going to do a quick time check. It's 3:30, so now might be a good time to move into our kind of final question and any, last comments or thoughts you guys have. So I'll let Eva.
Sure. So ladies, thanks again for the time you took to speak with us and our audience. I'll leave you each with one final question. What is the best piece of advice you have for someone who's considering an interest, hobby, or career choice but feels pressured into taking another route?
say just go do it. I mean, we live in such a, I think it's like the best time, for the humanity these days. We have so many opportunities available, technology, connecting people from all over the world. I mean, I know how, pressing the, like family expectations can be, society expectations, and I think having the opportunity to explore your own interests and, pursue those. And, even if you considering the career switch, right, you can always start doing something on the side. And, if you have a hobby, a lot of people turn their hobbies into multi-million-dollar businesses, right? So, I mean, it's insane to see all the success stories all around us these days. So I think, anyone have opportunity these days to apply the ambitions in the way that they always envisioned. And I say it's never too late to start. With Girl Develop It, we see a lot of students, the older students coming to us and learning how to code, right? So it's like, hey, you can do this at any time in your life. If you're 18, 20, 50, 60, doesn't matter. So I think it's just, it's in your own best interest to just to go and do it, because if you live your life and then you realize you never did that one thing that you always wanted to do, and all your life could have been completely different just because you've been doing that one thing that you always loved, and you never know how positively it can affect your life and people around you. So even just doing taking baby steps and exploring all these different hobbies, opportunities that are out there, I think it's it's a great time to do it. The time is now.
My advice would be to find a tribe. If you have, maybe you're not familiar with the area in which you want to go in, but find people that are. And then ask questions, be honest. Hey, I don't really know much about it, but I'm interested in learning about it. So and then once you surround yourself with those type of people, you'll start to grow within those friendships, and they'll encourage you and they'll support you, and then before you know it, you'll be doing the same things that they're doing. And because when you surround yourself with like-minded people who are doing the same exact things, you have a smaller opportunity to be discouraged. So that would be my
that's great advice.
I think mine would be similar to that, is to seek out also role models that are out there that you might identify with, or maybe even like unlikely role models that took a different path because they didn't fit back then, but now things, and so just seeing success in different ways and finding yourself in those stories, I think is important.
Yeah, creating your own story too.
Yeah.
Becoming the role model for the next generation.
Right.
Any final comments, questions, topics we didn't hit on that are super, super passionate for you?
I think we hit on so much stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, Eva's got a conclusion. She's got to read.
I have to. No. Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to download the Crafty Jawn app. Check out Girl Develop It at girldevelopit.com and learn more about Squeaky Wheel at squeaky.org. And for more thought leadership for Bak USA, visit bakusa.com and check us out at Bak USA Buffalo on social media. See you next time.